On February 28th, 2020, I started Suikoden 3, and on March 2nd, 2020, I set the game down after 3 hours of playtime. To say I was caught off guard and disoriented with Suikoden 3 would be an understatement. The game seemed to pull away from its predecessors far greater than I expected. So in this here spoiler-filled video, here's why Axelrod couldn't finish Suikoden 3. This is likely one of the most tragic games I've decided to drop. I like Suikoden 1 and 2. They looked good, sounded good, and played good. Shout out to everyone feeling good instead of well. What really struck me was how great the progression was from Suikoden 1 to 2. What has struck me even greater than that was the progression from 2 to 3. I don't like Suikoden 3, and I'm a little ashamed of it. Games becoming stagnant is an issue, but games changing the formula is also an issue. Games can't win in this regard, and I feel like a horrible person for hopping on this train. I wanted Suikoden 3 to be like Suikoden 2, and instead, I got Suikoden 3. It's the game that wanted to try something new and wanted to switch things up, and I don't like a single change. I feel pretty horrible about it. Instead of listing off every tiny minute change that really doesn't matter, I want to spend my time on the combat. It's ultimately the biggest change I didn't like and didn't understand. On the surface, the combat is the same as prior Suikoden games, but mechanically, everything is different. From what I could understand, you have 3 teams of 2 people. When choosing actions, you're choosing actions for one person in the team and the other team member does whatever, which is mostly attacking. Guarding is the exception, where the whole team will guard. So, for example, if Ghetto and Queen are teamed up and I have Ghetto cast a spell, I can't choose Queen's action. It also seems like enemies focus the first member of the team, which makes it a poor place for casters and ranged squishies, but less because they are squishy and more because you can cancel spellcasting. If someone is casting a spell, an attack can cancel it and you lose your action. Some high-level spells I saw took 2 turns to cast while others were on the same turn. This transitions to the fact that some spells have friendly fire as well, which means positioning is quite important. You didn't mishear me, I said positioning. Characters move around to attack enemies, but it's not something you can control based on my experience. This meant that a lot of valuable fire spells just couldn't be cast because all the fights devolved into clumping up without any real way to disengage. And lastly, I think I was playing the game wrong. They tuned down the random encounter rate a great deal. I probably fought less than 10 random encounters in the entire 3 hours. However, equipment and in prices were all quite high. Additionally, optional boss encounters were extremely difficult. The damage output was far greater than anything I could handle. In previous Suikoden games, grinding wasn't really a thing. Perhaps it is in Suikoden 3. I'm not sure. So there you have it. I could likely tolerate everything else, but when it came down to the combat, I had enough. I think the story had potential to go places and the characters were nice as well. The environments and towns were well done despite the wilderness areas being quite empty. The textures were quite good for a PS2 game, even if the character models were a bit strange looking here and there. Once again, I'm ashamed to not continue this game. If it had the same combat as Suikoden 2, this game would have been a no-brainer for me. Will I ever come back to Suikoden 3? Perhaps. I might decide to explore this game with a guide, that way I can better understand how to play the game. With that approach, I could hopefully breeze through the encounters and enjoy the story. Thanks for watching, appreciate it, see you on the next video. He's from Karaya, for crying out loud. Okay, get out of here, dog.